Hey, yo, Reset.
Hey, what's up, man?
So earlier today, there was a showcase. Did
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I did a PlayStation showcase, I
That's
think.
right. That's right. You know what the difference is between a PlayStation showcase and a state of play is?
What's that, man?
In the showcase, they have something to show.
Man, they had some things to show.
They had some things to show. Okay, they wanted to show us some things this time around. All right, some games, if you will. We finally had some games
There
being
was some
announced.
play to state.
At that state of play, I don't know what they stated, but I know what they showed me
but
this
they
time.
showed some cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're jumping in
Yeah.
right after having seen this PlayStation showcase.
Woo.
And they just leaned right into it. It was trailer after trailer after trailer.
Yes. Knocking them out back to back. We got some big games announced. We got some smaller games announced. We got some games that I personally had no idea was coming. And so, man, I think we got to just dive in. You know,
we're gamers. We got to talk
We
about the
got
games
to.
that are coming out.
We got to. So I want to start out, right? I mean, everyone knows this is coming, but Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2. So this is important, right? This is a very important announcement because back in the day when they released Spider-Man 1 for the original movie, right? The Tobey Maguire one, it was still Spider-Man swinging off of invisible air and all that stuff.
Yep.
And then Spider-Man 2 came out and revolutionized the franchise. Like from that point on, changed the whole
web
trajectory.
swinging.
You're swinging off of buildings and you're able to... We talked about this in the past, but it changed everything. So... Personally, for me, and I'm sure others would agree, I was expecting something big out of Spider-Man 2. I needed something big out of Spider-Man 2. I wanted it to be like when I played Spider-Man 2 back in the day. And they didn't disappoint. At least with this teaser, right? We saw no
we haven't seen
gameplay
gameplay
per se.
yet.
It's in-game footage.
I feel like we know.
Oh, yeah,
kind of what we're getting. We've seen
Absolutely.
Spider-Man and then the Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Yes. So here's what I'm excited about, right? A, it's Spider-Man 2, so they know the stakes have to be increased. B, they show Miles Morales and Peter Parker doing some combo.
Teaming up side by side.
When I played through Miles Morales, all I wanted was for him to be incorporated into the mainline series. I didn't want them to do, personally, I didn't want a Miles Morales 2 like mini story. I wanted it to be now from this point on, it's these two Spider-Man going on, doing their thing. The story's intertwined. Like, yeah, so they pulled him in. It's so exciting if you've played Miles Morales, the relationship these two characters have after that, and his mentor. Like, it's freaking awesome. It's got me pumped. Spider-Man has a new suit. So that's the next thing. He's rocking this freaking... And actually, that suit is from... I want to say it's from Civil War in the comics. And, of course, he had a suit like that in the movie verse as well. But he's rocking that suit with the arms.
I saw the arms come out, but that's something I've only seen in the new movies. What is it?
No, it was in the comics before.
Was it? Okay,
yeah, actually,
so I don't know the comics.
Yeah,
but...
so that suit stems from a suit that Tony Stark built Spider-Man. I think it was during Civil War. Now, comic book guys are gonna kill me if I'm wrong. But I swear it was from some big event like Civil War 2, something like that. And to me, it actually looked cooler in the comics than the movie because it was like gold and red. And in the movie, it was more, whatever the color of his suit was. In this, I think it looks awesome too because it's matching his new Spider-Man suit. And I'm sure you're going to be able to do awesome stuff. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the traversal because obviously that was the best thing about the last game. The leap from Spider-Man 1 and 2 in the past was enormous, so I'm expecting not such a big leap, but just some alterations, adjustments to how you can swing. Maybe you're swinging around and Miles is swinging with you now, so you see both of them doing tricks and flips. Like, I'm expecting some cool stuff, right? And also with those arms, I'm just expecting some awesome stuff. Maybe you bounce off a wall and your arms are just spinning you, twirling you. I don't know. This is all things I'm hoping for. And then last but not least, Venom. My favorite Spider-Man villain. Not the best Spider-Man villain. Let me just put that out there, right? The best Spider-Man villains, I'm thinking Kraven, Doc Ock. I'm thinking some other guys. Kingpin's a great comic book Spider-Man villain. Those guys hit him hard at home. Venom is my personal favorite because he's just a dark Spider-Man, basically, right? In terms of powers and looks, and he's buff. He looks sick and sinister. And I think I'm just excited. So Now let me just say one more thing about this, right? I watched this trailer. I'm a Spider-Man nut. I love Spider-Man comics. He's my favorite Marvel superhero. Always has been. I read all the original, all the Ultimate, which actually was the start of Miles Morales, and then they tied him into the actual canon verse. But I don't think they're gonna pull this over on me. I have a feeling that the voice you hear in that trailer at the start is Kraven. I could be wrong, but at the time, I'm looking for someone who can test me and defeat me. Venom, that's not his agenda. It's never been his agenda in the comic to look for a worthy adversary. It's the only person to ever talk like that is Kraven. Same type of accent and everything. I forget where Kraven is from, to be honest with you, though. I think he's Australian or something. Actually, maybe not. Kraven the Hunter. I can't recall, but his whole thing is looking for a worthy adversary. And also one of Spider-Man's greatest comic books, which is like, I think it's called Death of Spider-Man. He is actually defeated by Kraven. Oh, spoiler alert, y'all, because I'm about to get deep in this real quick. So if you don't want to know what this game is going to be about, don't listen to me because I have a theory. In the comic, Spider-Man fights Kraven and gets killed. He actually loses in some way, just can't beat him because Kraven is like this. He's basically like super serumed up. He's like this powerful like hunter dude who's just a master. All he does is hunt animals, beasts, strong opponents. And so he sees Spider-Man as a perfect threat. Like, let me hunt him down. Let me take the challenge. And he does. And I'm pretty sure he wipes the floor with him in the OG comic. And he kills him. But Spider-Man comes back. And do you know how he comes back?
How?
The black suit.
He gets
the Venom suit. He comes back. I think the Venom suit finds him in his casket or something. Somehow when he rebirths, he comes out in the Venom suit. That's all I remember. And then it's because the Venom suit is ain't working on his emotions. All he cares about is like, I gotta go find him, and he's like, but he's stronger. So obviously Venom is in this game. We know that. We see him. They don't show us Kraven, but my guess is they're doing that story. We're probably gonna see Spider-Man get killed, Miles Morales take over. Then Spider-Man come back with the Venom suit later. Is my guess.
Okay.
That's my guess.
All right, so you've heard it here first, folks. And I'm gonna hold you to that bet. And we're gonna find something for you to do. If you're right, we'll have a little celebration.
Yes.
If you're wrong, we're gonna have to punish you for that.
Also,
because you went all in on that theory. So.
Reset. I'm having a brain blah. I think it was called Kraven's Last Hunt. God, I don't remember what the comic was called, but it was awesome, and it incorporated all the elements that are in this game. Although this is the introduction of Venom, where's Eddie Brock, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm excited.
Well, there's a lot of potential here.
This is the biggest, man. Right? This is the biggest. Like, they're giving us Venom. Like, you cannot mess this up. And then Spider-Man 3, give us Carnage, and just keep it coming. You know what I mean? Maybe Carnage is in this one. I don't know. They had the Sinister Six in the last one. Okay. Just shut me up.
There's going to be
shut
more.
me down.
I mean, the teaser was awesome. I'm excited to see gameplay, even though I feel like we can just look to like Miles Morales and Spider-Man 1.
Know.
I think we know kind of what we're in for.
Absolutely.
But, I'm really excited because they've knocked the ball out of the park so far with this. So, I mean, more Spider-Man, always a good thing.
This is a game that needs minor tweaks at most. Like Miles Morales, they added like some additional things you could do while you were swinging. You could do like an additional jump in the air, and that's all it needs. It's minor, and you'll feel like it's refreshing to you as you're swinging around. Add some things where you can hook a corner of a building and hook it real fast and swing around, 45 degrees or whatever. Like all that. That's all they got to add. Stuff like that, and people will love it.
So okay, that wasn't the only Marvel announcement to come out of the showcase. There were three, I think, if I've got them all listed right. And honestly, they also showed a little more of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And to be honest, it kind of excited me. So when they dropped the first trailer, which was, I think it was like more of a gameplay trailer.
Yeah.
It kind of looks a little, it's sort of like this like third person run and gun. I wasn't sure how to feel about the combat. It didn't look like exciting to me, which is going to be a complaint I'm going to have, I think, about a lot of things. And that's probably just my jaded older self. But they showed a bit more of the story this time around. It was a little more like cutscene and, cinematic than it was gameplay. Jury's still out on for me. Could be interesting. But I have to say, the story they started to show for this game started to pull me in a little bit. The trailer they showed for Guardians of the Galaxy, it it just, it started to like really get into the characters' personalities a little bit, showed a little bit of the villains, and it had that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe to it. So I'm starting to get excited, tentatively excited for that game.
I got to check that one out. I missed that trailer.
And then there was another teaser that they dropped. No gameplay, again, very short teaser for Wolverine.
Now, this one I saw, okay? Oh. And this is still Insomniac Games making this. And they said that they're putting their heart and soul into making this respect Wolverine. They found the success with Spider-Man. I don't think anyone's ever done Spider-Man justice like they have. And that's credit to Activision back for Spider-Man 2 again. I think that was the best one up to this point. But if they show care for Wolverine like they did here, I don't know what to expect. One thing I want to note is in the trailer they show blood on his knuckles. This is a group of people like Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales. They have blood in it, I think, here and there, but not much.
It's a PG game, yeah.
It's a PG game, but the blood on the knuckles gets my brain just twiddling a little bit.
This is going to be the Marvel game for maybe some older audiences.
That's what I'm wondering. Wondering.
And now here's the thing. I got vibes. So, Wolverine, one of my favorite X-Men characters. My favorite is Gambit still, but Wolverine,
awesome,
up there is one of my favorite X-Men characters. And the thing is I have a soft spot in my heart for that first X-Men movie.
Yeah,
which we could talk about the weird stuff in that movie series.
yeah.
But that first movie and that scene where he's in the bar and he gets into that brawl fight, and it was just kind of this was still the early days of the the superhero cinematic universes, and we're off to an early start, and just having that this guy, and you're just like, oh man, he's in this bar, he's having this brawl. Absolutely. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is Wolverine. He meets Rogue, he's this grizzled, just him being at that bar, which I know is it's kind of an iconic moment for Wolverine, but it gives me memories of that movie, and that just makes me even more excited. I want that grizzled Wolverine. I want to see some hardcore, maybe a little more mature action.
Yes. Oh. I'm expecting some solid gameplay out of that one. Again, we didn't see any gameplay this time around, but I give them respect because, like another game I'm going to bring up later, I had no idea this was coming. I mean, I had zero clue. They just announced that other one a few weeks back, Marvel something with, I think, Ghost Rider. I forget what it is. It's like something where they're like fighting demons or something. I don't know what it is, honestly. It's some Marvel spinoff team-based game. And I was like, and I think Wolverine's in that. So I was like, oh, okay, this will be, And then this actual standalone Wolverine game is announced, made by the same people who made Spider-Man, gave it all that love. I cannot, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what it'll be in terms of violence, but I just know these people, they're going to give it everything they got.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see as a little bit of gameplay starts coming out. We see a little more. But all I can say is from the Spider-Man game so far, the love they've shown those characters.
Yes.
And, the way they've treated those characters, and they've respected, the origin and the source material, and they've just given them these personal stories, makes me have faith that they can do the same thing here.
Sure. They're proven. These are guys that I'm not guessing right now. I mean, they are. Spider-Man was the shit, right? It was game of the year, I think. I mean, it was all over the place. It's that game. These guys can do it if anyone can. And also, man, these graphics that they're producing, these are probably the best graphics I think I've ever seen. Spider-Man 2, when that trailer started up, I thought it was live action for a second. And then that little thing comes up and it's like, this is captured in game, PS5. And I was like, what? Come on, man. So whatever Wolverine turns out to be, I'm excited. I definitely want to see some gameplay. I hope we don't have to wait too long.
So, I mean, speaking of good graphics and sequels, new follow-ups, we got a couple of other cool games come out of the showcase. We've got the next in the Gran Turismo series, Gran Turismo 7, and they showcased that trailer. Now, I mean, we've talked about racing games a bit, and I love dabbling. I love diving in. I always kind of burn out quickly. I'm just not racing games are a tough thing for me to keep with.
Yes.
But oh my God, every time a new Forza or a new GT comes out, it just is mind-blowing.
Yeah, for sure.
The graphics in this trailer, I mean, the reflections they show, and they have this whole, it's like spinning through these different backgrounds with this like
these pistons
feature,
or whatever,
these
like
feature car. They show like the pistons exploding in the engine. The level of customization you can do to your car. They were showing people putting on decals. I mean, we're gonna see photos coming out of this game, designs coming out of this game. Man. Just the visuals. Almost like I almost want to buy this game. You know, I'll probably never complete the story. I just want to throw some Netflix on in the background and just like trick out a car and take some pictures of it.
When I saw this game,
so beautiful.
Reset. When I saw this game, man, I started doing this. I was sucking my fingers. It was like I just had some delicious rib tips.
And you need to get that sauce.
This is a game, you're right, I might purchase just to be like, look at these graphics. Like, I'm going to be honest. I was able to get through Drive Club. I was able to get through Need for Speed, Midnight Club. I played a little Forza Horizon, not the original Forza, but I love the Forza Horizon series, the open world. But Gran Turismo, that game is on a whole nother level for me. I cannot play that game to save my life. Like, I'm one of those guys who, I need to drift by releasing the brake and then applying it again. Like, that simple. But Gran Turismo is like, you got to do all these things to drive properly. And actually, like, it is a real driving sim, and I respect the hell out of it for it. And it's also one of the first driving sims and one of the driving sims that push the franchise. Like, the graphics and everything have always been top notch.
Gran Turismo, I think, what was it, like 4 on PS2 or right around that?
3, 4, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. At that time, it was blowing like minds. It's just unbelievable fidelity.
Again, I can't play it to save my life. Yep. I literally, I will buy that game. It will sit on my shelf and it will gather dust until I want to show the graphics off, and I'll show it in like a training mode. I can't play those games, but my God, did that trailer look good? Like,
they look so beautiful.
I would love to hear from our listeners if they are lovers of Gran Turismo. Tell me what you love. Tell me what you're excited about, because I don't know about the series outside of the fact that it's a trendsetter.
And I will say I have dove into that, I don't even know.
Diddle,
swam, splashed off the high board. You know, I've taken the plunge.
Hey, you know, a dove is like a bird, right?
Is that a dove?
Yeah. What is it?
I've hit the deep end on a few of those games. I think this is around GT5, right? Like Gran Turismo 5 era. You know, a good buddy of mine loves those games, and he brought me into his love for it. And it was one of those, again, I'm not good. I was learning so much about how to play, how to get better, reading the turns, picking my lines, like getting the fun out of it. But even just like spending those hours, and you just like, because in most of those games, you start out with a crappier car, or not a crap, but just like, they're like, all right, we're not going to drop you in like a Bugatti or like a Mazda, like right off the bat, you get maybe like a Ford Focus Prius, or like an Audi, like convertible, you get you get a budget car.
Right.
And so you fall in love with that original car because it's crap when you start out. So you got to start doing some basic races, and you got to win enough to buy, usually the tires are the first, because that's the easiest thing to upgrade and get yourself a little bit. Man, I mean, we could go into this, but suffice to say, at its peak, we had one of those steering wheel controllers. Oh. And so we set up, nothing I'm not talking like 3-panel with the like hydraulics, but just like, we took a coffee table, we connected that controller to it, got like a cozy like floor-based chair, and we just spent the whole night, just diving into that game, racing it with a steering wheel, which to me is what you need to do.
So it's funny you say that, because the steering wheel is the exact reason why I can't play those games. And let me explain. I owned one of those as well, right? I had a steering wheel with the 3 pedals. And you know what game I had it for?
Yeah.
Ridge Racer for PS1. And that game's BS. It has no reality to it at all. Like, every corner you got to hit it full turn, and it's just so fake. So like, I learned my first license was given to me from the administrators of Ridge City, whatever that place was called. And so like, I was just used to spinning the wheel, like, I got to make these turns, and slamming the brake. So by the time I got to Gran Turismo, it was like, you have to ease on the brake. You have to take turns close to the wall. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I don't get this.
You got to drive like a real car?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, Power, one of these days I'm going to find, I don't know where it is around here, but I'm going to find a setup where they got that. Like, It's like the racing chair with like a
man,
proper, like I'm talking like metal pedals, like a real steering wheel, like, you know, like a 3-screen display with a supercomputer driving it. I'm going to take you out there.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you how a racing game is meant to be played.
That's what I need. And maybe then.
And then I'm going to take you to a track. We're going to rent a Ferrari. I'm going to show you how racing is meant to really be.
I'm down with that too. Like, matter of fact, let's skip the video game portion. Just get to it.
No, we building up to it. We got to train. Man, you don't put a pilot in the flight seat. They go through simulations first.
You got me so damn excited. Reset my phone falling out my pocket. Shit. Okay. All right.
So we got that coming out. We also got the next game in the God of War series. Woo. In the, I guess, what would you call it? The Asgard trilogy or like
this is
story.
What is it? Nordic mythology or what is this?
Yep.
So Norse. Norse mythology. So we got the next one coming out, right? And Ragnarok, which, you know, everyone knows Ragnarok is like, that's the end of days for this. End of the world. You know, this is where the gods go to war with, you know, Loki or whatever, and the giant serpent. I mean, this is where like crazy shit is gonna go down.
Oh yeah.
And so, again, very excited, very very excited for this. Loved God of War I don't even know what you would call that one. Remake, remaster. Yeah. Not even remake or remaster. It's a sequel, but it's like a re-envisioning of the franchise, right? Loved it. Loved the characters. Loved the gameplay. Loved the graphics. Things I wanted were more boss battles, more epic fights that the original series gave us. And going by this trailer, it looks like they're setting up some pretty epic fights. So I'm very excited for that. But man, the if you play through that first game and by the end you realize what's going on, and spoiler alert, you realize his son is Loki. It's like your hype for the second game goes through the roof because everyone knows. I mean, outside of Marvel, which he's an amazing character and has his own show in Marvel, Loki is like that guy. Like he is our modern day Thor. Like nobody cares about Thor anymore. Everybody, and so like understanding that his son, I think his name was Atreus or something in the game, is Loki. It's like, oh, okay, so where are we going? Yeah. And the game ends. So seeing this trailer, I was like, oh, finally Ragnarok. This is gonna be great. Graphics awesome. We're seeing Kratos battle even more epic foes. We're seeing characters that we fell in love with coming back. We're seeing his son asking questions, which has me a little worried, but we'll see how that goes. But everything looked great to me. Full disclosure, God of War looked like God of War to me, right? Like the last one. It looked like the same game for the most part, and then some more. I'm expecting when we see Spider-Man gameplay, it'll be very similar, which is not a bad thing. God of War, again, won many awards, probably Game of the Year when that came out, if it wasn't the same year as Spider-Man. But just like, just an awesome re-envisioning, and very excited to hop back in. They show Tyr, I think it was, at the end, and you're hearing about him in the first. It just, everything that was set up was leading to this. And again, let me go full circle. God of War 1 compared to God of War 2 of the original franchise was the same type of leap that Spider-Man 2 took from Spider-Man 1. In God of War 2, basically the whole premise of God of War 1 is like you get one epic boss battle at the very beginning and then one at the very end, and all the middle of that game is a slog now. Like, it, you know, you get some cool story and stuff, but it's a slog. God of War 2, arguably the best one in the series. The third one was just graphics, came out for PS3, all that great stuff. It looked incredible, but like the second game was so well put together, in my opinion. Like it just, the bosses were awesome. They were well paced, spaced out. Like Kratos went through this whole thing where you found out like some more stuff about him, and you knew exactly by the end of the game what he was gonna do. It was a huge leap. The gameplay felt richer to me. The weapons and stuff you would find, like it was just way better than the first game. Way better. It set the trajectory of that series also for 3, Ascension, Chains of Olympus, all the other ones. So here we are again, a re-envisioning Spider-Man, God of War. Now we're on the second one. Like, this is their chance to be like, all right, guys, like, we're glad you liked your taste, and now we're going to go off the rails. The stakes are just as high as Spider-Man 2 with Ragnarok, right? We got a war going on. So I'm expecting the set pieces to be more epic and more grand than anything we've ever seen in video gaming, period. And I mean that. Like, in any video game ever, including any set piece you saw in the previous series, Uncharted, whatever, like where things are blowing up, I'm expecting there will be an event in this game that will blow all of that away. That's what I'm expecting from this Ragnarok, and we'll see.
I'm hoping to see it now. An interesting thing that they mentioned a little bit at the end of the showcase is that the God of War, the new one, like the God of War 2018 director, is not coming back for the sequel.
Right.
So they've switched him out with a new, a director who's been with the series. I think he was he was in the combat. I think, and he's been with the series for a while. So they're not pulling in someone out of nowhere. But they also threw in this little thing where I guess they have this tradition to change directors across games. And so it's really interesting to me because, again, the trailer we've seen, I mean, it feels very on brand for where this series is going.
Yes.
And it's just interesting because we haven't so far, I think, really talked much about the studios and like the back end of games. Yeah. But it was very interesting to me just that they mentioned that they've brought in this new director for it, and they tried to ask Cory Barlog, I think, who was the director of the first game, what he's working on, and he would not spill it.
Cory Barlog's a beast.
Which also makes me curious as to what's going on. I want to know what he's working on, which I'm sure we'll find out soon.
My guess would be Cory Barlog probably realized, and this is, again, hypothetical. This is just how I would, and I would love to talk to Cory and ask him this specifically one day, but I think what happened was they were like, all right, Cory, we need to make this new God of War. He's like, all right, cool, I got you. We're going to make it to today's standards, which is, a little more like we want a character that's more believable, more down to earth. Kratos, the original Kratos is a superhero, a super villain, however you want to see him. And this Kratos is he's a human. Like, you can understand his motives like you could your best friend or somebody's grumpy old grandpa. Like he's believable. And so Cory was able to do that, which is shocking. Like, to me, I've never seen, I think they tried to do that with Lara Croft, and we've talked about that in the past, and I think they failed at that for the most part, personally. But again, to turn an icon superhero into like a relatable character is a hard task. And Cory did that, and I think my guess is he's probably like, all right, cool, guys, did that. Now you guys go ahead and finish this off. And I don't know what he's working on. I have no idea, but I'm sure he's got some other super ambitious project that he wants to crank out. But again, the team of God of War, the ability to make that game change the whole genre in terms of how the combat is, how the set pieces play out, and how the characters develop and act. Kudos to the team. Like, as long as the core team is still the same, I think they're in great shape.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. And I was mentioning, I know I talked to you a little bit about this, but of a lot of the gameplay they've shown, I feel like you're seeing your third person games, your first person games. It's a lot of either shoot 'em up or action oriented combat.
Right.
And you never really know until you play it how solid it feels. Yeah. But even in a trailer, there's just something about the God of War gameplay that just feels so grounded and so satisfying. And so even just seeing that trailer, it makes me excited to play it.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these others, I'm like, okay, looks interesting.
Right.
Not sure how this is going to feel. And I feel like that's just a trend that over the past couple of years, there's so many games that seem cool, and then there's just something a little clunky. Like when you finally get into it, just the gameplay, it doesn't have that crisp feel that certain games do.
That's a great point, Risa. That's a great point because honestly, I remember when I saw the first God of War trailer for the first game, I personally thought the game was going to suck. I thought it was going to be terrible. When I saw it was around Kratos' back, he couldn't jump up in the air or do anything, or he didn't have the chains. I was like, and he only had was an axe. I was like, this is going to suck. What are they doing? They're turning this into Dark Souls. Then I played it and it was spot on what I needed. It was tough. Innovative combat that kept me engaged, which I love the original series, but that game you can literally put a hand in front of your face and tap square and you'll probably win on normal. So I thought that was incredible, and I agree. This is another series that's proven. God of War is proven. There's no doubt the game's 5 out of 5 or whatever. It would take a miracle. It would take a cyberpunk level miracle for them to mess this up, right? It looks great. And we know we know it will be great. We know it will feel great. All that's left is, will the story hold up? Will the set pieces give us what we want? You know, I think that was my biggest gripe with the first one is it just didn't hold up in terms of the set pieces. But we're coming off of God of War 3, which is you literally storming Olympus, right? That's the build. Like, this is Ragnarok, and I'm sure.
Yeah, so you almost kind of got to reset it again.
Yeah, they reset it.
See
right.
It's funny
that you
the
say
power.
that reset. Yeah. They got to reset it and get back to that level of stakes. So, totally. Speaking of which, of gameplay tightness and fidelity, Forspoken.
Yes.
So they show this game Forspoken.
New IP from Square Enix.
New IP from our boy Square Enix. And the first few trailers I saw of this game, I was questionable because I thought it was like, okay, this is like a tech demo. Is this coming off whatever?
Kind of where I've been at. Yeah, I've been following it and like a little mystified, I guess.
Yeah, a little mystified. And this new trailer brought me in. I think this was the one that finally got me. Because now I know who the character is. I like that she's got a little potty mouth and that she's a little confused. Like, I felt way more connected to this character being pulled into this fantasy world. It gives me vibes of Final Fantasy Advance when all the little boys and girls are playing, are having a snowball fight, and then they're sucked into this fantasy realm and they're forced to deal with the fantasy politics and culture and everything that's there, and they have to grow up fast and battle. Like it reminds me of that, like, or Page Master is a movie where you're pulled into this. Like, I like that idea, and I fell in love with those dang graphics.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because I feel like up to this point, kind of like you said, it felt very tech demo. You know,
yeah.
It was this mystery character, doing some cool stuff in this fantasy world, but it was kind of empty. Like, you're like, okay, like visually, aesthetically great, but what am I watching and why, and why do I care? Right. And even just in the course of this trailer, I all of a sudden I feel like I know so much more about this character. Yes. I like the energy,
yes.
I want to get to know the story.
She's sitting there like,
see what her deal is, see where she's going.
I love the part she's like, and I saw, so before I saw a trailer where it was they interviewed this actor and she was talking about how awesome it was to do this motion cap stuff and all this. And I was like, okay, but what is the game about? Like, I still don't. She was talking about all the characters. I was like, but this time they showed this trailer and she's like, I just landed in this world. I'm freaking fighting a dragon and I'm talking to a bracelet. Like, and I was like, like that's cool. Like, all right,
now we've got a bit of story.
Yes,
we got something to dig into.
We got something to dig into, and I know how you're dealing with this. Like, you're relatable. Like, I'd be like that too. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, it's not like I'm in here to save this world and blah blah. Like, she just seems so cool and down to earth. I can't wait to see how she develops in this fantasy world. So I'm excited about the story. I was blown away by the magic, right? As we talk about episode after episode, I love playing with magic and stuff in games. But seeing her, like, freeze the particles of water in the air and shatter the ice and, like, teleport, like, dash and fly throughout the land and, like, use, like, all these different types of magic, I just was like, I was stunned. I was like, this looks freaking awesome. Like,
man, I'm really excited. There were a few points that I'm unsure about. Just like, there was one clip where she's just kind of like strafing and like shooting blasts out of the bracelet hand, and I'm like, okay, like, so I want to get to know what the flow is of the combat, right. Like where that lands, and also like so there's the traversal stuff, which I'm sure you saw, and I'm like, For me, I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about it, because I think one thing I feel like I'm learning that I'm concerned about is certain games get so fast, so quick that the stakes shift, and so it's like you can move so freely and so speedily that it becomes like the nuance of the sort of in the moment dodging and like choosing which abilities to use are trivialized, because you can just kind of like dash out of it or like move out, reset, pick the favorite thing and spam that. Now, this could be perfectly balanced and it could be super fluid and I'm going to love it. I'm just, when I see that, I'm like, is it going to hit me like that where it becomes so fast that it causes me to sort of game the system, and then all of a sudden I notice I'm doing that and I don't like it anymore. Yeah. I'm curious.
I'm excited because the traversal in this game looks wild. It looks fast. To me, it looks solid. The way she's jumping, like you see her doing parkour on walls and she flips up, dashes, jumps. It looks like you have a lot of control. And that's what's important to me. It's like, I'm so tired of the Assassin's Creed, Ghost of Tsushima. I can just climb this wall and I know what my path is. Even Uncharted to an extent was very similar, where you would climb this is giving me full on ability. And by the way, Assassin's Creed allows you to climb anything, but it all climbs the same. It all feels the same, and the speed is the same, and it becomes old. Yeah, like you have to go to this waypoint, you're climbing this mountain, you're like, I almost wish I could just teleport there. So I like the idea that I'm able to burst, fly, jump, and just kind of guide myself across this massive map versus slogging my way through it, which I feel like a lot of, and that's also why I love Spider-Man. It's because in Spider-Man, you're going, man, you're moving. So again, you're right. Like, I don't like the idea of like making combat too simple, right? If I'm dashing that fast, can the enemies hit me? I think they got to find the balance, similar to Spider-Man, where if you're playing Spider-Man and you're fighting a vulture in the air, you're web slinging on him, hitting him, and then you've got to dodge out the way. But like his blast hit quick, and you're also getting attacked from the back. Like, there's ways to do it right, aka Spider-Man again. And if they can do that with this type of look and this type of feel, where I'm not web slinging, I'm sprinting. My idea is in my head, the way I see it is you're sprinting and there's an enemy, some type of beast or something just sprinting right there with you, and you're just both dashing through this land trying to battle each other. Like, that's epic to me. Like, versus like Assassin's Creed, where like a bear charges you, you dodge roll, and it's like he missed, and then you whatever. Like, I'm thinking more on the level of Shadow of the Colossus, where if you've ever played that and you're riding your horse against and there's these giant colossi, and they're all walking next to you, you're riding your guy Aggro or whatever his name was, and then you're shooting arrows at him while moving. There is something so amazing and untapped with that level of speed and combat. And I'm just hoping this game, Forspoken, I'm hoping they hit that. Who knows if they will? But by going by what I've seen of the combat, it looks like it's on the right track to me. It looks like they're taking the animation seriously. Like, this doesn't look like some rinse repeat nonsense. Like, I've never seen graphics like this with spells on this level. So we'll see how it goes.
No, it sounds like they're really leaning into this new IP, and I'm really excited. One notable absence from Square Enix, though, anything about Final Fantasy 16.
So apparently, allegedly, they said that it wasn't going to be here this month or something like that. I read something on Reset Era, which could be BS, but I swear they said that somebody said that, it's not going to, we weren't going to show it. So I guess we were supposed to know that it wasn't going to be here.
Yeah, that's fair to expect it, but it's just concerning that that's the state it's in.
It is.
Because, you've got so many amazing games that are coming out quickly. And we're looking at games the quality of Spider-Man that's already moving on to, it's Spider-Man 2, but it's really the third game already. Yeah. We've got the second God of War game coming out. Mm-hmm. And yet, when did 15 come out? It's been years now.
Years. I don't even know, but I want to say 2017 in my head, but I could be way off.
And 15 took what was years in the making through some crazy realignments and restructures, and the fact that this game is now starting to kind of drag with no noticeable preview of where it's at to latch onto concerns me.
It's fascinating
because I'm seeing a trend here.
Because and I am too, and it's fascinating because this unfortunate trend is slap tap attached to Final Fantasy. It's not. Look, I kid you not. I'll say this right here: the greatest JRPG that I have played in the past 10 years, JRPG, including Persona and Nier and all that stuff, was Dragon Quest, the newest Dragon Quest. That is the best JRPG I've played in the past 10 years, hands down. It felt like the true successor to any of the classic PS1 games. And that was Square Enix. They were able to do it. They proved it. I was like, this is literally the best. Like, in every way, I was so shocked and blown away by the characters, the depth, the combat, the difficulty, the graphics. I could do a whole episode on it. I loved it. But they can't seem to do it with Final Fantasy. And it's not just 15. We're going back to 13. We're going back to 12. Every single one of those games, whether you love or hate them, has been divisive. It hasn't been since, and 11, which was an MMO. It hasn't been since Final Fantasy 10 that us as Square Enix fans, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
I'm getting
we all came together.
We all came together, and we said that we loved Final Fantasy X, right? And then even after that, they botched it with Final Fantasy X too. So, which was divisive as well. So it's been so long, and it's strange because, again, they get so many series right. They just released The World Ends With You 2, which was, I think, pretty dang good. Or maybe it was just a demo, but it looks great. It looks like they released Kingdom Hearts 3, and it wasn't perfect, but they did a pretty dang good job with it. They did Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was really good.
And 14, Final Fantasy 14 continues to blow me away, and I continue to love that game.
Yes.
But, I want a Final Fantasy story that's more intimate. Like, like, as much as I love 14 and I love the social aspect, I love joining up with my friends and, like, following the politics of this world and the, like, epicness of this story, I still do want that more personal story. I want the feeling I had playing those older games.
Absolutely.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, I want those stories.
I want to unanimously come together. I had to correct myself, right? Because I want to come together and just say, listen, this is a good Final Fantasy. That's what I want to say about Final Fantasy 16. Like, and going by that first trailer, I'm not there. I'm just not there yet. And I was hoping they would show something during this event. Again, this was a Sony event, so maybe Square Enix is deciding, hey, we'll do it during our own time, during E3 or whatever. But I'm not sold on it. And Square Enix is showing Forspoken. So, like, the combat and stuff, the scale of combat that I'm seeing out of Forspoken, it's not exactly what I want to see out of a Final Fantasy. But that level of, like, detail in terms of, like, the spells and how it looks, that's what I want.
And I feel like it's a tough time for AAA RPGs as a genre, because you look at games like Final Fantasy, like the remake of Final Fantasy VII, and I've told you about this, which is I love that game, and I love the adventure and the, like, innovation it's doing, making a more, like, action oriented where you can play it entirely turn-based.
Yes.
You can play it more fluidly and, like, action-based, jumping between characters. But there were moments in that game that were so aggravating to me, and it just did not feel like this system was perfect. There were things I could just complain about like, the story was cool, and like there were moments where I felt like epic, and then there were just moments where I just felt like I was fighting against this combat mechanic.
Yeah.
And and I get it, because you're in that tough position where you're like, you want to innovate, but there's so many, there's so many different kind of, like, trials, and so far none of them have, like, redefined the status quo.
Yeah.
Or you just stick with the classic, turn-based style.
Yeah.
But then, it's a lose-lose, because then you get hit with these people who are just like, you haven't changed anything. It's not new. I feel like I'm playing an old game.
Yeah. It's tough. And again, I feel like they have to find an identity, and I think they have found one, but they won't stick with it, right? Like, it's, so I get it. Square, before they merged with Enix, was a different company, and then they merged, whatever, and things started to change and all that stuff, and we got found all these, whatever. But, like, you made Dragon Quest, so I know that you know how to do turn-based, and you can do it well. But you also made Kingdom Hearts 2, which I think was perfect. Like, I loved Kingdom Hearts 2. Story-wise, people can have their say, but gameplay-wise, that was a fun freaking game. Final Mix was a freaking fun game. So it's like, you can do both, but they just can't. I feel like there's always something that throws it off. Something that they're trying to do, some mechanic they're trying to introduce that throws off whatever it is when it comes down to Final Fantasy. Like, again, Kingdom Hearts, you could literally remake any of those old Final Fantasy 8, or before that, skipping 7, obviously 6, whatever. And you can give me the Kingdom Hearts combat from Kingdom Hearts 2, sub in Terra for Sora and the other characters as Donald and Goofy, and I'll feel like, man, this is obviously updated, but I'll feel like this is great stuff. Like, but they just, it's something going on with Square Enix. You look at this Final Fantasy 16, and we haven't seen any party members.
Yeah,
and if you really look at that
single player,
all we've seen is
single focus point,
that single character, and it's and also we see him fighting a single target. He's fighting one target and lifting the target in the air and juggling it. It looks. Here's how I see it. it looks like Final Fantasy 13 all over again when you're doing like a stagger juggle or whatever, but I guess you're doing it real time this time around. And it also looks like Mobius, like a mobile game to me. It looks like you're almost swiping to do something, you know. It's very rock, paper, scissors looking because you've got your summon abilities or whatever. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why? Like, you could easily take from anything you've done in the past and give it to us. Like, I know you want to innovate. I hear you. I want to innovate too, but...
Well, and here's the thing, and I'm sure I'm going to get flack for this, and I'm sure
I'm going to get a lot too.
I'm sure
so don't
there's
worry about
plenty of people who disagree with me,
Absolutely.
Strongly. But to me, there was a magic about the system that they had in Final Fantasy X.
Oh, I knew.
I know there's a love-hate with that game for so many people. And so
but
bring it out, bring it out in the email and Twitter. Like, I want to hear why you think why you love it, why you think it sucks. But here's what I think about it: is that in so many RPGs, eventually, you have a party limit. You have maybe 3, maybe 4 characters, and eventually you have this party of anywhere from like 8 to 12 to whatever. And then it's like either the game is like lenient and they're like everyone levels up and so you can kind of do that, or they screw you and they're like, no, whoever's active levels up. Now you got to grind every, So then you end up with this situation where eventually you have your favorites and you just have that party that you stick with. And you're like, these are the characters I love the best, or I love their combat the best. Yeah. And that's your party. And unless you're forced to, that, you just have this kind of like shelf gathering dust of like your extra. It's like you got a sports team. You got your star players, and then you got your bench, and you're like, all right, fine, I guess I'll bring you out for this
I'll
one.
Call you in.
But in 10, they had this. It was almost like this rock paper scissors, or this like triangle mechanic where all the enemies were weak to certain things, and each character had a special. I think with a few kind of exceptions, like there are a few sort of specialties, but it was like Auron was really good against armored enemies. Lulu had the magic, so she was great against enemies who were like, weak to magic.
Yes.
Waka was good against like these like flying or like ranged enemies. Like everybody had this specialty, and it was so easy to tag in and out people. Yeah. So you really felt like the whole party was fighting together, and you were like, oh, like for this, I'm not just gonna bum rush through it. Switch to this person, hit this enemy, now swap them out for this. It added this depth to the strategy, which wasn't just like, all right, when do I use an item? Now when do I attack? Now how do I deal with the status effect? It was also like, now when do I sub in this player? It felt like now you're managing a team, not just the party.
Yeah, and actually you hit the nail on the head, because all the ones that came after that pretty much just disregarded that. Like, when you look at 13, you have Ravager, Sentinel, and I forget what the other thing was, the healer, right? But like you had characters who fit those roles, and so your only decision was like, do I like this Sentinel versus this Sentinel? Now me, for 13, I had the strategy guide, so the strategy guide tells you what is the best Sentinel. Or what is the... So you just use those characters, right? There's no point, there's no Waka, there's no guy who's great against range, there's no lady who's great with magic. Like, there's no reason to use other characters once you know who the quote-unquote best versions are. And it was the same for 12. Like, 12 was like, you can make any character, any class, use any weapon, so there's no identity to those characters outside of whatever their quickenings were, like it lost itself. Like, it didn't feel like Final Fantasy. And all before that too, not quite to the extent of Final Fantasy X, but we had those type of things, like even in 8, which people that's really diverse. People hate that game or love it. You had Squall, who's your hard hitter. You had Zell, who could do combos. You had Renoa, who had her little dog. And like every character was different, and they all served a strange purpose. Irvine had his gun. Like, everyone had a different feel to them. And I feel like they did that in most of the Final Fantasies leading from like 3 on.
Well, and there are other games, and it's funny now that I think about how much I love these games, but there are other games that I feel like also, like in Persona, it's a similar system where there's just sort of like this, weaknesses table, this kind of rock, paper, scissors of like, this is strong against this is strong against this. And so it kind of forces you to like, again, juggle your party members and juggle your abilities, because you're not just looking to like plow through enemies. You're like, you want to conserve as much as possible, because that's a big Persona mechanic. So you want to hit these weaknesses. You want to play that strategy.
These are strategy games at the end of the day.
In the Trails games, which which we'll hit on an episode.
Yes.
But in those games, similarly, you have a party and different the different weapon types do different damage to the enemies.
Right.
And in terms of spells, you only have so many slots to kind of equip a character. And so you can't give your mage everything. You have to pick.
Exactly.
So then it encourages you to say, okay, let me have this roster with people who offset what's in my current party or who have the ranged hit that I need, and then you can swap them in and out depending on what a battle demands.
Yeah, there's got to be strategy to it. At the end of the day, when I play a JRPG, again, kudos to Dragon Quest. They nailed it. For all the reasons we just talked about, you got to have a strategy. You got to have characters that are strong against certain types, and just bring it all together. Why do I have a team if I don't need them? If Michael Jordan didn't need Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, then why were they on the team? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you got to have that right when you do a JRPG. Speaking of which, there is something else we need to talk about that's coming back. We got way sidetracked on Final Fantasy because we love Square Enix and Final Fantasy games. But, however, there is another game that we need to talk about, KOTOR Remake, right?
Oh my God!
This is some serious. This is some serious stuff. Reset. This is some juicy things, right?
Yep, you're right.
We got some juice in this sucker, right? Because KOTOR was the shit, right? It was
game.
It's the first BioWare game I think I've ever played. I don't know if they made anything before that. They probably did, but I just can't think of it right now. And it really, after that, we got Jade Empire. We got, obviously, KOTOR 2. We got Dragon Age. We got all that whole series. They gave us so much more, but it all started here for me.
And you know what? Here's the thing. I will say this here, is that KOTOR, for me, is one of the best storytelling experiences I've had across any medium.
Hands down.
Not even just games. I'm talking across
any medium.
Books,
Straight up.
Movies, TV shows. The story of KOTOR.
Yeah.
Hands down, still one of my top storytelling experiences of all time.
And I'll tell you this. It's not, on top of just the story being as great as it was, it's the best. It is, in my opinion, the at least top 3, if not the number 1, best choice-based video game where you're given a choice to do certain things. Because
they matter.
That is a game where when you want to be a villain, you will be the absolute villain. There will be no middle ground. You play games where it's you're playing Witcher or Deus Ex or
Mass
all these
Effect
other
or something where
Mass
it's
Effect, where you're
good
making
evil.
quote unquote renegade choices that are still good for. No, you can literally be the freaking sin of all hell by the end of that game. You are Damien. You can do things in that game that are so evil that I feel like they've still to this day haven't been touched. And I loved it, man. I loved all that. I loved the story, the look, the lore, everything is just solid. So we got this coming out, right? They didn't show much. They showed our
sure
boy's
didn't.
mask or gal's mask. And so we know that it's a remake. We know who we're playing as. Again, spoiler. You're playing as Revan, who has lost their memory and have the opportunity through that to turn to the light or go back to the dark, right? And so they have to find their old master Padawan, Malik, I believe it is, and handle business with them. And so even that basis is incredible. It's never been touched in the story of Star Wars and any lore that I've seen, any comics or movies outside of this. Obviously, they made KOTOR-based comics later on, all about Revan, even post-video game. And so that's exciting. We were just talking about strategy. The gameplay for KOTOR is dated, right? I think we can agree, Reset, that combat needs a tune-up. And I don't know what they should do. I really don't know. I don't know what they should do, and I don't know what they're going to do. And I'm sure that's why they didn't show anything.
And they sure didn't. And they were tight-lipped about it, too. I mean, they talked a little bit with the guy who's helming the remake. And, it's kind of surface level. It's just no, this isn't a remaster. This is a remake.
Yeah.
We want to stay true to KOTOR, but we really want to bring it up to date.
Yes.
And that the original combat, it was some very early RPG, you know, kind of like stat plus dice roll, and you literally just like pick the move and kind of watch, you know, your character whiff away at the enemy.
Yeah, you would select an enemy. Okay, so here's what all right, let's get into it real quick, right? Here's what I don't want, and here's what I want. Simple. I don't want the AI to be tacky, right? In the other game, you could level up your characters. They would get level ups. You could either auto level those characters and it would basically level them up based off of their class, or you could manually level them up and you could pick what you want them to have, even if it's, you know, goes against what their nature is, right? But in combat, sometimes they would do dumb shit. Like you'd be like, man, I just gave you this barrage attack, and they would never use it. Or like, you have force heal us, and they're not using it. It's like, I don't want that. They got to tune that up. The thing I do want, though, if they do keep that turn-based combat, I want more epic combinations of combat. I want more clashing, right? So, like, when you got into a battle in that game, it wasn't like, I hit you, Final Fantasy style, I get hit. It was like, they would sit there and do a dance. So you've got a lightsaber, 2 lightsabers, a double lightsaber. The enemy has whatever they have. And you two are clashing, boom, 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 hitting blades until one of you wins, and then they get the finishing blow. So it was a whole different look. Like, there's nothing else like this game where it's like, it felt cool. Like, you would have your matchups. If you're the main character, you're going to put your guy against the main villain and then let your team take out the grunts. And so you and the main villain are sitting there, bow, 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 with your lightsabers, clashing. Everybody else is blasting and doing all this other cool stuff. Like, I want to keep that intact if they go with turn-based, because it looks cool. The presentation's awesome. It's like watching a Star Wars movie, but add more animations, right?
Oh, yeah. Give me a whole slew of animations. Yeah. So I want to, you know, like when you miss, there should be some awesome like block stuff going on. It should feel like you're watching almost like the Total War games.
Oh yeah,
and like and that was very much similar. It was like this very like you would pause and you would kind of really set up this strategy. You know, you'd have your units. This is a weird ass comparison.
No, that's accurate.
But like, you know, you'd set up your units and then you'd kind of be like, all right, now start, and I'm just gonna zoom in. And I'm going to watch this fight. Like, and you could watch each individual unit, like, duking it out. And then you'd kind of like, all right, you like zoom back out. You'd be like, cavalry, charge in here, you know, like, restructure this. Like, this flank is falling, reinforce. And then you'd be like, all right, order is issued. Let me resume and just, like watch it like a movie.
Yes.
And so if they're going to keep it turn-based, that's what I want. I want to be able to be sort of like this, you know, tactician, be like, all right, you're picking this, you're doing this. Cue up a couple orders, and then, like, watch it, you know, watch this epic Star Wars battle just going on.
Same here. And all they got to do outside of that, give me solid updated versions of the Force powers, right? I want to see Force lightning hit like, you know, nothing I've seen before. I want to see the release of a lightsaber really just like give that nice illumination in a dark room. Like, again, I think I mentioned this to you off air, but I don't mind if they go with the Jedi Fallen Order engine or look, right? I thought that game was phenomenal.
It was an amazing
in terms
game.
of how it looked and felt. You know, if they're going to go with the combat similar to the old style, that's fine too. But like that level of graphic fidelity is what I'm looking for. And like the animations were all solid. When you hit a stormtrooper in that, you saw where like you sliced them, the blade. The line of the lightsaber blade was on the armor. Like, I want that level just with this too, and I think, man, I'm stoked. I don't really know anything about the team, but
let me ask you something though, Power, because I'm curious as to where you stand on this.
Okay.
So in the original KOTOR, your team was voice acted. So like when you talk to them, you know, Kyle Katarn, I think,
Kyle
Katarn's
somebody else. God, what am I?
Who am I thinking of?
He's like your Han Solo
like Bastila,
dude.
Like, you know, you get all these characters, and like they have voice acting for I think at least most of it.
Okay.
So when you're talking to them or they're talking to each other, they all had voice characters.
Okay.
But you did not. So in the original KOTOR, you were the silent protagonist, and so you had, but you know, so you just had those in-depth choices, and you would, you know, you'd look at them and you'd pick one, and like that's what you said. Now remake coming out, do you want the main character to be voice acted?
Is this on the table for discussion? Like, are they?
I don't know, but like I just want to know, like, you know, since we've only seen this teaser so far, like, what would you want?
I think I think I do. And I'll tell you why. It's because this same company that made the original, and again, I don't even know if BioWare is making this one or not. I'm not sure what the hell's going on. I didn't dive that deep, but they proved to me that they could do it with Shepard. The 2 voice actors they got for Shepard were incredible. Like, I'm sorry, by the third game, that voice, either one is iconic to you.
Amazing.
So, like, I feel like they could do it. I don't remember if they did it for Dragon Age. I know Hawk from 2 had a voice in
the Origins
Inquisition.
one, I think, did not.
I don't think Origins did. Yeah, but I think Hawk may have. I know Hawk had a voice in the third game because he shows up depending on your choices. But they can do it. They've proven that they can find a solid, healthy voice for any character that they choose to go with. So, like, I wouldn't mind it personally. And anyway, if worst case, then just give the option to shut the voice off. Because
the thing is, I don't know where I stand. Because the thing I remember about KOTOR is those dialogue options were chunky.
Oh yeah,
I mean they like the choice. You had 3 or 4 choices, and there was like a good sentence to 3. It was and then you clicked on it knowing that is what you said.
Yeah.
Whereas in Mass Effect, it was kind of they were very short because the whole prompt wheel couldn't have these long things on it, so it was short. It was like a generalization.
Yeah.
And then you kind of had to see what they were actually saying.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I feel like that's okay, and then other times I'm like, I don't know. I kind of want the control of I want to know what I said.
That's the great point. See, I wouldn't mind voice acting if you tell me what I'm gonna say, right? Like I agree with you. And I feel like other games have done it. Like maybe The Witcher 3 did that too, where it's like, do you want to buy this? And it'd be like, the answers would be yes or no. And then you click no. It's like, why the hell would I ever buy that? And it's like, wait, I thought I was just going to say no.
Yeah.
Like,
I just want to be like, I'm good.
Yeah. Like, so I think that if they go with the dialogue, right, and you say explicitly what they write, like, I would be okay with that. Like, if it's like, man, I don't want to pick, and that's what my character says, cool, then that's fine. But I wasn't a fan of the guessing what they were going to say. I see the merit in it, okay, it keeps things refreshing, exciting. You're going to say no, but maybe your characters be like, back in the day, we wouldn't do this, blah blah blah, so I would never turn my, they can say some cool stuff to your simple choice. But it's
you kind of pick a direction, but you don't know specifically what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But in those old BioWare, like KOTOR, you knew exactly what you said, and so you got the exact reaction you were expecting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I would be okay with the voice acting as long as I get to pick exactly what I'm going to say. I know it seems a little redundant to read it and then be like, okay, haha, you're going to say this. But, man, do it. That's what I want. And even if they don't do it that way, give me the option to shut the voice off, and you're all good. I'll just read it, and I won't hear any voice come out of my character's mouth. So, anyway, KOTOR, though, man. KOTOR remake.
I am so excited.
Let's go, Reset.
Let's do this.
Right. We also got another remaster coming out for Alan Wake. You hear them crickets? No, I'm kidding.
Editor, can you cut it?
Yeah. No, Alan Wake, look, when I first played that game, here's what I thought. You're playing as Alan Wake, the Stephen King he's this guy who's like, I'm a writer, whatever his name, and he comes into this small town, this Baraboo, Wisconsin style place, and it's got this diner, it's got this whatever post office, whatever, and you come in off of a ferry, and so he's there with his wife. They've got a cabin they're gonna stay in and all this stuff, and the game opens up in this way where I will say this, it had one of the best openings that I can recall from a horror video game, because it opens up and you're in this small town and they just let you go for a second there. You feel like you can go everywhere, you can't. But you're wandering around the street, you cross the street or whatever, going to this diner, characters in there talking, you're like, damn, this is going to be pretty crazy. I'm in a small town, I got to figure this out. It was awesome at that point. Then the game becomes way linear. The combat hits you in the face and you got to shine a light on enemies to break their guard basically and then shoot them, and the story was fun enough where you're wondering what's going on with this lighthouse and this darkness and all this stuff. But this isn't a review of the game anyway. But it just expresses why I'm not very stoked for it, right? The original game needed work, in my opinion. It needed a remake, not a remaster. It needed a remake. The combat, I think, needed an overhaul. I think they should have expanded on that town. Like it should have just been. There's one game out called Evil Within, right? Evil Within 2, where they drop you into a small town, and it's a pretty big place, and there's characters littered throughout it, like a few characters, and you have to wander around this town. It's very different than Alan Wake. It's not like a homey, cutesy town. It's like a town overrun like Silent Hill style, but it still was cool because you get to pick and choose where you go and who you interact with and how you do your side missions. I think that is what Alan Wake should have been.
I mean, I just, the fact that I don't remember much about Alan Wake really says it, because I picked up the game. I think I beat it in like a night or two. One night or something. I just played it late, and I beat it, and I just don't remember it. It doesn't it doesn't stand out in my mind. There was like the flashlight mechanic, and it just I know there are people out there that love that game, but I just, to me, the fact that I don't remember it, that I've forgotten about it, having beaten it, kind of says, where I'm at in terms of a remaster of it.
It's one of those games that has a cult following. And again, I could understand it from this sense. If this is one of your first interactions with a horror game, maybe you never played Silent Hill 1 or 2 or anything after that, Fatal Frame or any of that stuff, I could see why you would fall for this game. You've never played a horror game with some action combat and characters and this in a small town, semi-open and stuff. I could see it, but as someone who's played through Silent Hill 2 and 3 and 4 and all this stuff beforehand, I thought the game was mediocre at best. It got great reviews. It had full voice acting. It had great graphics, and I give it all that. But as a game, I thought it was a little dry, a little bland. I thought the mechanics were boring. But I also respect it, and I mean that. I really do. I really saw potential in it. Again, you don't remember anything from it. I don't really remember anything from it, and also I don't remember really anything about Alan Wake himself. He was a writer. All I remember is he's a Stephen King character who narrates everything about the game. Oh yeah, I wonder. I've got to make it to the lighthouse. He really didn't have any flavor. It wasn't like an Ash Williams from Evil Dead situation, or just in a horror game like that. You need a character with an edge. And I don't mean it has to be emo or dark or masculine. I don't even mean like that. I just mean the character has to have an angle, an edge, something to them that's interesting, And that character, I swear to you, again, write to me if I'm wrong. I don't remember anything about that character. I don't remember anything outside of he's got a goal. Once he figures out, I think his wife gets taken or something happens. I don't even recall. But he's got some goal, and he's a writer, and that's it.
Yep. Definitely not something I'm super excited for. There are a few final games. We're not going to hit on everything. I mean, there were so many trailers, but there's Rainbow Six Extraction.
Did they show a trailer for that?
They showed more gameplay for it.
Whoa.
Starting to could be pretty cool.
Okay.
I mean, I'm really excited for some co-op or some team-based, FPS action. I was kind of leaning into Battlefield to really tickle that fancy.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But Extraction does look pretty cool. There's some cool gameplay, so definitely excited for that.
Okay.
There's this cool open world game Chia coming out.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Colorful,
almost very colorful. Some elements of Breath of the Wild with the glider. I mean, that's pretty pretty similar.
On the nose.
But an interesting possess animals ability, and then you get some cool abilities based on the animal that help you kind of solve puzzles and progress the game. Very interesting stuff there. Wonderlands. So a Borderlands, spin-off. Love Tiny Tina, really cool to see this sort of mix of fantasy and guns. Mm-hmm. Definitely going to be fun.
Deathloop.
And then Deathloop,
which is like a Bethesda go-to style game. It's very Dishonored looking, in terms of the powers, which Dishonored was an awesome game due to what you could do with the powers, lift somebody up and spill water on them and then throw them in a bucket of whatever and they freeze. There was all these different cool combinations of powers you could do. We've got Sifu, which I'm excited for, and you're going to be excited for after tomorrow because we're going to go watch that Shang-Chi and you're going to be all martial arts. I mean, the games, the combat looks so solid. It looks like something that I've wished for a long time. Hand-to-hand combat that is guard, block, parry, but it also looks very fluid. So we got that coming out.
There's an interesting game, Vampire Blood Hunt. that I'm kind of curious about. So it's like a free to play battle royale game. And it's this sort of like vampire based. They showed a little bit of gameplay, and I guess there's kind of, at least based on what we saw, there's like these 3 different classes that you play as. It's like there's sort of like the, I don't know, the like siren seductress type. There's like the undead, whatever you want to call it. The kind of like the brute class. So there's like these different styles you can play, and it has a very interesting look to it. And as a free to play game, it's definitely one of those like it's easy to pick up and try out. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's supposed to come out late next year or late this year.
Okay, missed
so
that one.
We'll see what's going to happen there, but definitely a lot coming out. It was a pretty packed showcase.
Coming out. Like I gotta say, I really enjoyed the showcase. I caught it late, but when I watched it and I saw everything that they showed, the funny thing is, this is what I'll give it, right? We wanted to see Final Fantasy 16 and other games like that, but we saw Spider-Man 2 and we saw God of War along with combat. So they gave us some really heavy hitters along with some shockers like Wolverine and KOTOR. Like, I feel like I was satisfied, honestly. I didn't know what I was going to get. I thought it'd be a letdown because we haven't had really an E3 by Sony, and even E3 that we had was, I felt a little mediocre. So I thought it was pretty solid so far. So I know we got to rate it.
Yep.
So I'm going to have to give it 4 out of 5 showcases.
I'm going to have to give it 4.5 out of 5 PlayStation.
Hey, but we're on the PlayStation 5, right?
Does the Slim count as a 0.5?
Yeah.
Well, as always, thank you so much to everyone for listening. Please write us at powerandresetpodcast@gmail.com with your thoughts, what you want to hear about, reactions to the showcase yourself.
Yes.
Drop us a line on Twitter, Instagram, and as we reset for next week, let's hit that power button and get playing.